In the previous video, I assembled my first class boxes in my view. It seems as though people are thinking that I may have missed the trick in not mentioning the likes of Muhammad Ali. I didn't really see him as a boxer. This man was a revolutionary. Let's talk about the things he stood for.
Could you walk me through the personal experience you had with Muhammad Ali and the time that he grabbed your hand and where you were?
That was at the Sports Personality of the Year Awards, 2000. It was called Sports Personality of the Century, of which no doubt Muhammad Ali won. The Parkinson's had set in. The amount of people on this stage, Muhammad Ali, you had Lennox Lewis, you had Evander Holyfield, you had Nassim Hamed, there's a few more fighters, I think Barry McGuigan was there, and I was there. The question was put to all of us what he meant to each and every one of us. And when it came to me, I actually said something like this. You know, Muhammad Ali should never have been criticized like he was for standing up for truth and what is right. And as I was talking, his hand came over Lennox Lewis's lap and held my hand, squeezed my hand, and I got emotional. And I said, okay, let me stop. So it's very, very emotional because what he's been through, what he went through, what he sacrificed, the life he lived is that of a superhero, a demigod. And, you know, I don't want his boxing confused with that. This was a revolutionary. This is why he will always stay number one. You know, you had Jack Johnson before him as a revolutionary. Martin Luther King was assassinated for the truth he spoke. Malcolm X was assassinated for the truth he spoke. Muhammad Ali, he spoke truth. You know, that is extraordinary beyond, arrest.
Can you remember when you first saw Ali on the TV screen?
The first time I saw Muhammad Ali was when I was about, I'm not even sure, it must have been 8 years old, so do the math. I believe it was 1974, and I was looking at the TV, black and white, and there was this Muhammad Ali, and I looked, and it's like, okay. And it didn't do anything for me at the time. But that's my first recollection of Muhammad Ali. It's only when you get older and you begin to see the things that he stood for. What does a man stand for? You know, if the man is standing on principle, then he's an important man. We must use Muhammad Ali and his example to project us and what we feel about the state of play in terms of human rights. This is what matters. How well a man fights is secondary. If you're not looking after fighters who are being misled into fights which can have them harmed, then what do you stand for? You know, I know about these fighters. Oh, he's a really great fighter. That's fantastic. But what really gets people is what you stand for. What do you use your platform for? Once you understand that, then you understand what it is to be a revolutionary. Okay, I rest.
What happened with him and his refusal to go to war?
In one particular interview with Muhammad Ali, you hear him saying, no Vietnamese ever called him. He's explaining that, you know, why should I go and fight a people who have never actually done anything to me, where the home in which I live, which I've represented in the Olympics, I got gold, and I'm treated like a slave. Why should I go and fight for you? He said, you know, I'd prefer for you to just put me in jail. They banned him for 3 years. This is in his prime, taking away the best years, his best boxing years of his life. Look at the injustice of these governments. It doesn't make sense. It's like munitions. Let's say 500 people in a government and 500 people in another government. These two cabinets have a disagreement and then they buy arms, like billions of dollars of arms. But the arms don't harm the two 500s, it harms the people. It does not make sense. If you're supposed to be working for the people, how are you killing them? Because munitions only harm the people. Bob Marley, he says, until the philosophy that holds one race superior and another inferior is finally and permanently discredited and abandoned, there will be war. That until there's no longer first-class or second-class citizens of any nation, that until the color of a man's skin is of no more significance than the color of his eyes, there'll be war.
But I was wondering if there was a part of the activism that he had that you embodied in some of the protesting. Like, he didn't want to go to the war and then you protested against the Iraq war. Do you think that there's a part of that you saw inspiration from him in the actions that you took?
I would have, but I wouldn't have had that on my mind because obviously I am directed by spirit. So, when they invaded Iraq, I'm like, surely you can't be doing this in broad daylight like no one's seeing what you're doing. I went and I got arrested 4 times outside Downing Street in my truck, which caused me a great deal of issues. It's still causing me issues today. But I did the right thing. And, what was obvious to me then is obvious to everybody now, as it was obvious to millions of people at the time, because there were protesters and there were marches at the time which were numerous. I suppose me doing one alone, caught the headlines. But this is what you must stand for if you're in the public eye. If you're in the public eye, you have a duty to steer the minds of the people in the right direction. Now, I'm sure you know the story. I was sworn in a court of law. I'm a deputy marshal. This is real. I was sworn in a court of law. Training day, so this is simply a car crash. Doesn't look too bad. No injuries, but I don't have a rain coat like the rest of the officers. But that's okay. Training day and it's raining here in Louisiana. I was sworn in not to carry a firearm, but to go into schools and talk to youngsters about staying straight and out of trouble and reaching for their desires and the way to actually win. I go on raids. They tell me to stand behind the engine of the police car because if bullets start going off, the bullets won't go through the engine. I've done this. I actually have it on tape.
What did you think was his best attribute as a boxer?
His best attribute as a boxer was ring IQ. He had a jab and he knew how to move. He had heart, meaning that if he was actually stuck in a fight, a toe-to-toe, if he was in the pocket, he'd stay there and actually fight it out. But otherwise, he was clever. He'd stay on the jab. His ring IQ was exceptional. But I do not want you to get caught up with his career, because what he did for human rights, for our rights as human beings, supersedes boxing 1,000 times. Oh, okay, what? You want to talk about the rope-a-dope with George Foreman? You're going to talk about the rope-a-dope when the man has actually changed governments? Those films are being shown today, and it's steering people and making people stand up and say, yes, he was right, and this government shouldn't be doing this. This government should be working on our behalf, not against us. So again, I don't want to get caught up on his boxing ability. It cannot be compared to the strength of character that he showed for speaking truth for the people, his people and the people. We have to use his example to go forward where everyone is looked after fairly. No discrimination. Not about color. Not about class. Everyone should be looked after. Everyone has to be looked after because everyone is our brother and sister.